Hey, this guy, he's a hustler though. I got hustled today.
Let me just say, you don't want none of this. I'm just saying. Ask him.
Hey, I'm from Cleveland at the end of the day. We hustle.
Hey, everybody out there in Storm Nation, thanks for joining us. We have some great stuff on tap for you today, and it starts with the two new releases coming down the pipeline here at Storm Bowling Products in Brigham City, Utah. We're talking the new releases of Absolute Power and the new Summit Peak. And who better to help me introduce these two bowling balls than my two guests, starting with the reigning PBA Rookie of the Year, Cortez Schenk, and actor extraordinaire, social media mogul, we're talking Rich Morrow. And guys, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourselves. Cortez, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I started bowling when I was about 10 years old, so I've been bowling for like 13, 14 years now. My dad's ex-girlfriend was like a college or high school bowler or something, so she was a, avid bowler kind of. And so we kind of all went bowling one time. And
ex-girlfriend reference. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know this is that kind of show. That's awesome. I got a few of those.
So we all went bowling, and we just had a good time. And then she bought my dad a ball, and then he bought her a ball, and I wanted a ball. So we all got balls, and then the thing kind of went from there. We joined a league and bowled some tournaments, and then the rest is kind of history. Went out this past year on the PBA tour and had the goal of winning Rookie of the Year, and was fortunate to achieve that.
Yeah, nice job, by the way, and congrats on that award. That's awesome. Rich, I don't know how many ex-girlfriends you have, but why don't you tell us about you and your great career that you've had thus far?
I was going to say, we're not going to dive into the ex-girlfriends. Definitely not going to dive into those. But yeah, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, man. And I grew up pretty much with a ball in my hand from as far as I can remember. My dad was a bowler. My grandmother was a bowler. So I'm a third-generation bowler. And I grew up in the alley bowling in leagues my whole childhood, man, up until I was 15. And I just remember, when we would travel and I'd be with my whole league. There was about 300 kids and all minorities, which was really cool because for me, I never really saw anyone on TV.
Right.
It looked like me bowl.
Right.
So, I really enjoyed that, and it was a big part of my childhood. I got to earn scholarship money, and by the time I got to high school, I started playing basketball and football, and it kind of, took a back seat to everything. So I ended up going to college to play basketball at Florida Atlantic. That was my first dream. I wanted to be Michael Jordan first. Sure. But growing up in Cleveland, naturally, having LeBron James close to you, you fall in love with basketball pretty easily. And ironically enough, he followed me down to Miami. He followed me. And, I was down there for those years, and I didn't bowl at all. So I was already, out of it for, by the time I graduated college, about 5 years, 6, 7 years. And I ended up moving to LA to start my career.
Right.
And I didn't have a ball, Yeah.
Tell us about your career thus far.
I really wanted to, be paid to just be me growing up. I told my mom that all the time. And I always knew that I would be on TV. I just never knew doing what. I assumed it would be throwing a ball, or shooting a basketball. You know what I mean? And one day I went to a workshop down in Miami, and I met a casting director, and I fell in love in 4 hours, man. And he told me, if you take this really serious, I think that you would be amazed at some of the things that you may be able to do that a lot of people don't get the privilege to be able to do. And for me, that was confirmation. The whole reason I went was for confirmation, and I got it. And from there, I packed my car up with my best friend and drove across the country to Los Angeles. And 9 years later, I got 30-something credits. I've been in movies. I've just produced my first movie and starred in it at the same time. And it's all kind of surreal, especially to bring bowling back into the equation too. So
terrific.
Yeah.
And listen, if you need any extras, I'm your guy.
Oh yeah, I trust me. You're gonna be the host.
Now, guys, you've had a lot of time with these two bowling balls. We're gonna start with you, Cortez. If you can kind of take us through your experience throwing the two bowling balls. Let's start with the Absolute Power.
Yeah, Absolute Power. It's a lot of ball, really strong. A lot of the SPI big ASEMs are really early, really strong, but this one's a little bit cleaner. Allows me to get in the lane a little more, hook it a little more, shape it, especially one of those bigger balls. like the gems, realities, things like that are a little too early. So really looking forward to throwing this one as it just gets through it a little easier, allows me to shape a little more.
And when you say asim, you're talking about the core, asymmetrical core versus a symmetrical core. And typically when we hear that asim or asymmetrical core, we're thinking big engine, a lot of horsepower, right? But in your own words, you said it's a little bit smoother for a big asim weight block, right?
Yep.
Okay. And let's move on over to the Summit Peak now. What do you see in that ball?
Summit Peak, you know, it's really clean, really angular, really whippy. Reminds me of a marble pearl on steroids, thanks to that AI technology in there. That thing is a beast. You know, I know I'm at those a lot on the patterns where a little more beat up or a little softer. I can get in, shape it. Really excited to this one this year.
All right, well, thanks for that great info. We're going to move on over to Rich now. Rich, after a 15-year hiatus from bowling, he's back. And man, did he really show and strut his stuff in the Storm Bowling Challenge. You got to make sure you check that out. But Rich, you know, you've had a great experience since you've been here in Utah, your first time ever. Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience and also the 2 bowling balls that you threw?
Man, first of all, it's been an incredible experience here. I feel like I've learned so much in such a short period of time, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Coming back into the sport after taking so many years off, so much has changed. All of the technology, all of the terminology, I feel like there's so much more than I ever, you know, had to worry about when, you know, I was bowling when I was younger. So that's been a blessing in itself, just getting educated on all this stuff. But since I've been here, I've been able to really learn about my game too, which I like. I've learned that, you know, I definitely have to pay a lot more attention to my specs and what I'm doing with my layouts on the ball. I have a lot of power. So for me, I usually do use bigger balls. Formerly, I was using the Eternity Pi a lot. I can definitely see myself using this Absolute Power a lot because I definitely can get away with my speed and still having that shape that I'm looking for.
Right.
The Summit, man, I think the Summit might be my new benchmark ball after today.
Nice.
I think it might end up being because it gives me that shape that I really love where, like Tez was saying, that it's snappy. It's not as snappy as I see the virtual, I feel like is, the virtual blackout, but it gives me that middle ground where I'm like, okay, I can trust that this is going to get around the corner, you know, without trying too hard, and I like that.
That's a good feeling to have, right?
Yeah, it is.
When you know that you got a little mistake room to the outside, and you know it's going to come back.
And for the recreational bowler, you need that forgiveness every now and then.
Well, trust me, he is anything but a recreational bowler. He's a high-level skilled player, especially for somebody who had taken that much time off. There was 0 ring rust on you, my friend. I watched it. I watched it in person. It was tremendous. All right, so we're going to talk now about, you know, how do you go about, as a professional, how do you go about deciding, you know, between the 2 balls based on the oil pattern you're competing on?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything that comes out of here is always amazing. But, you know, Absolute Power, that's me something I throw on probably the longer patterns. You know, struggle to get some other stuff to hook. That's a ball I'm probably going to throw. A lot of volume, you know, high length. That ball's me in play. Whereas the Summit Peak, that ball's me, you know, good later in the block, you know, when the lanes get beat up.
A little transition, a little carry down maybe, the fronts start to go a little bit.
Yep, exactly, yeah. On tour, there's a lot of rev rate out there, so lanes get beat up pretty easily. They, you know, fronts go away, and you need someone that gets through it, but still shapes enough down lane. That's where that ball's going to come into play.
All right, and that's great info. Now, how do you relate that to somebody like Rich? So Rich he goes into the pro shop, or he's watching you practice at the local center, and he's like, hey, man, I see you got these 2 new Storm balls, and which one do you think would be good for me? How would you evaluate that for him?
Yeah, so it kind of depends, I guess, how you like to play the lanes. You know, if you're a kind of a cranker, you like to get really far inside, and you want to shape the whole lane, I think Summit Peak's probably the ball for you. If you want something a little smoother, more kind of like that banana shape motion, you know, you kind of struggle maybe with some of the weaker balls, get them to get up the hill, I think the Absolute Power would be the right ball.
Okay. And now, Rich, you've got all this information now, right, from a high-level professional, but yet one of your buddies comes to you and says, hey, Rich, I like the 2 new balls you have. Which one do you think would be good for me? How do you relate that information to him?
Well, it depends on who's asking me because everybody doesn't know how to drive a McLaren, so you can't just give them the keys. Can't just give them the keys to a McLaren, you know? So it depends on who's asking me, but realistically, I know Some balls are really, so the absolute power may be tough for someone who doesn't have a high rev rate.
Right.
I could imagine that being,
or maybe somebody that
doesn't have speed is a little bit slower. Yeah. I could see that being an issue for them because of the ball being as strong as it is. But it does get through the fronts. Like you said, it's like the banana shape where I don't think you have to worry about it, you know, biting on you too hard.
Sure.
Where you got a little bit of a safety net. I think for me, I'm a little bit in between them both. I like the Summit because I do like to get a little bit of a shape. I like to play inside, you know, a little bit, but I also understand when there's a time to play straight.
Sure.
So it really depends on the conditions I'm sure that you're going to be bowling on. If you're bowling on a typical house shot, you kind of get to play around.
Yeah.
But for me, I know the lanes do get beat up when I'm bowling at my house. We got a lot of crankers on our team itself. So just on my team alone, I know they're going to burn out my line probably.
Right.
So for myself, I think I could see myself using that Summit, and I would recommend that to other people if they're going to be playing with some high rev bowlers.
And coming from a gentleman who has zero problem with speed or rev rate, he throws it incredible. And if you haven't caught his action, make sure that you go to stormbowling.com and check it out. It's a lot of fun. These two went at it head-to-head, and it was just brilliant. All right, folks, there you have it. The two newest releases coming down the pipeline here in Brigham City, Utah, Storm Bowling products. Make sure you go to the website, stormbowling.com, and check out the Absolute Power and the Summit Peak. Guys, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for helping us with all of the stuff. And just it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure working with both of you.
Absolutely, Randy.
So fun. Thank
You're
you.
a legend. It's a pleasure being with you. You're the Hall of Famer.
God
Hey,
bless you.
this guy, he's a hustler though. I got hustled today.
Let me just say, you don't want none of this. I'm just saying. Ask him.
Hey, I'm from Cleveland at the end of the day. We hustle.
Good stuff, guys.
It was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you.